Bungie is back with another Lightfall preview article. This time we're looking at a Season 20 weapon tuning update. Let's start with what I know is on everyone's mind, the raid damage meta. Linear fusion rifles have been dominant for many seasons in a row, and Bungie has noticed. Linears against champions, mini-bosses, bosses, and vehicles have received a 15% damage nerf. However, Sleeper Simulant, and also Queenbreaker, but mainly Sleeper Simulant, is not receiving this nerf. We'll talk thoughts, end of the video. Machine guns are getting a base damage increase to make them more forgiving to use in PvP. Time to kill times against players with tier 6 resilience have been decreased, meaning faster kill times. But for you PvE lords out there, ammo reserves are also getting a substantial buff, with machine guns with a 0 inventory stat getting a 50% increase, and guns with 100 inventory getting a 20% increase. So most are going to get somewhere in between a 25 to 40% increase in reserves. Nice. Heavy grenade launchers have mostly been irrelevant in PvE world for the past year, so Bungie is buffing their damage by 20% versus champs, both bosses mini and regular sized, and vehicles, with damage versus minor enemies going up by 40%. Not only that, but they're increasing collision of the projectiles, making things easier to hit, and they're increasing the blast radius by 1 meter. Parasite not affected by these changes. Shotguns are getting some reticle adjustments to more accurately represent their spread angle depending on your status, whether you're sliding, standing, airborne, etc. Kinetic weapons are getting their damage multiplier increased from 1.05 to 1.1. For those who don't know, or who might have forgotten, kinetic weapons do still in fact get a 5% damage bonus against unshielded enemies. Kinetic slot stasis weapons will no longer get this bonus because there was very little point in running a kinetic weapon over a stasis weapon. Kinetic special weapons are getting their damage multiplier increased from 1.05 to 1.15, and there's also a kinetic damage type perk coming in Lightfall. Exotics. We got a few notes here. Queenbreaker's blinding effect was trash. So they're making Queenbreaker use Arc 3.0's blind effect, which I assume is meant to mean that it will have synergy with the blind keyword if you are using an Arc subclass, and the shot now chains to nearby enemies. Ruinous Effigy's Transmutation Sphere Slam Attack now suppresses targets. That's actually awesome. Leviathan's Breath, still not getting used. So Bungie is buffing it even more. It will now apply Volatile on Perfect Draw Impact. Its damage was increased in PvP, so it can now one-hit kill anyone in any super, and its damage against champions was increased by 30%. Maybe this thing now has some sort of a chance, but we will see. The last time 1,000 voices had any relevance was over a year ago, so Bungie is trying to bring it into the current version of the sandbox by adding scorched stacks to each explosion. Each explosion does 10, meaning you get 90 stacks of scorch on a target in one full burst if you hit every single explosion on the same target. But if you run with Ember of Ashes, it does an extra 5 per explosion, meaning you will trigger an instant ignition if all of your explosions hit a target. This now also means that 1,000 voices with Ember of Ashes will be capable of stunning unstoppable champions in Lightfall. Not sure how good of an idea that will actually be, because you're not going to do the full damage of the shot that you stun the champion with, but I guess it's there if you're desperate. Sunshot is getting a similar treatment. It will get 10 plus 5 with Fragment Scorch stacks added to its explosion on kill. Polaris Lance is also getting Scorch stacks. Perfect Fifth shots now apply 40 plus 20 with Fragment Scorch stacks instead of their custom effect. Two-Tailed is getting 60 plus 30 with Fragment Scorch stacks instead of its burn. And quote, the Catalyst completes the trifecta, and I'm assuming this to mean that Jolt will now also be applied to the target. Very nice. Not sure if that's in the form of a literal third rocket. Seems like a bit much, but we'll see. Prometheus Lens is getting Incandescent added to its Catalyst. Pretty nice. Grand Overture's Catalyst has been switched to use Arc Blind, the Arc keyword. Perks. The information that everyone has been waiting for. Osmosis works with Strand. Woo! Great news. Elemental Capacitor will give plus 20 airborne effectiveness with Strand. Rewind rounds were custom built for VOG weapons, but they're tweaking it so that it can now appear on more weapons. Eager Edge, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not an Eager Edgelord, so I'm not the most familiar with what these changes actually do for people who are doing any sort of sword skating things. Seems like they got rid of the speed limit, they reduced some of the base lunge distance and gave it back via the enhanced trait. Y'all can break that one down in the comments. Blinding grenades have been renamed to disorienting grenades. Looks like the effect is the same, they're just renaming it. Finally, Viced Stinger. Arguably the best origin trait by a mile is getting a nerf. It now reloads 25% of the magazine versus a full reload when it procs, delivering another blow to select linear fusion rifles. It's still going to have value, but it's not going to be as insanely dominant. Okay, that was actually much shorter than I was anticipating. A lot of good stuff here. Let's talk thoughts. Linear fusions getting nerfed should not come as much of a surprise. Their damage was really strong, but the main thing that they have going for them is their efficiency. With ammo perks, triple tap, 4th times, Viced Stinger, even though that just got nerfed, they're still able to generate ammo and reload very freely and easily. With a lot of damage phases lasting a very long time, this made them the obvious choice. Their sustain was unbeatable, but only their damage is being hit. Their ammo economy is staying the same outside of Viced Stinger. This might make something like Cataclysmic stand out even more now because it didn't rely on Viced Stinger, but they're not getting completely pushed out of the game. Rockets have been gaining a lot of steam lately, even becoming the main damage option for a lot of teams and strategies, and those didn't get touched at all, at least as of this post. I don't want to definitively say that rockets are now going to be 100% the new #1, but I would still make sure to have a couple of good legendary ones. Ones with burst damage options like Demo or Clown for reloads, but also ones with auto-loading holster in case we somehow go back to some sort of Izanagi-based damage rotation, even Arbalest, since kinetic special weapons just got a nice little buff. This assumes that that buff is hitting those exotics, which I assume it is because they didn't say that it wasn't. Sleeper Simulant continues to be a sleeper pick. We're going to see if those buffs make it stand out a bit more. I'm worried that the constant reloads and the less than ideal reserves are going to continue to hold it back though. Machine guns getting a big reserve buff is really awesome for a good amount of reasons. They're not really boss damage type weapons. They can be, but at the moment they're not the best route to take because of their ammo efficiency. You want machine guns to mow down enemies really quickly, but if you want to use it for both that and boss damage, you need a lot of heavy ammo bricks. Now you have a bit more flexibility here. I'm surprised heavy grenade launchers didn't get any sort of a reserve buff as well, but I guess too much could potentially have made them a dominant option again. GLs are still very good burst damage right now, good for very short windows, but I think their reserves are the main thing keeping them in check, with G-Horn being the other thing keeping them in check. With G-Horn giving Wolfpack rounds to all rockets, I think they're going to be pretty tough to beat. I don't have any math to go on right now, that's just kind of the hunch. Nothing was said about Anarchy not getting this grenade launcher buff, but I think for Anarchy to shine, we need to go to a non-power weapon damage meta, and I don't know if that's happening yet. Kinetics getting a little more love is very nice, always going to take a free damage buff. Kinetic snipers definitely needed some love too, happy to see that, although not the most happy to see no sniper changes. I guess Bungie is still fine with the status of snipers right now, or they maybe still have more to reveal, I don't know, but no notes on snipers, not a single one. Little surprising, little surprising. Loving all of the exotics, getting more subclass keywords included. Ruinous Effigy for one. That thing is going to be really nice. The biggest drawback with using that is that you had to put yourself in ridiculous danger. Now at least you can suppress things and get out. 1,000 Voices getting Scorch and potentially an Ignition on every single fully connected shot is, you know, I'll say it's a little bit of a sleeper pick for damage options. Again, not sure if it'll compete with rockets, but I think it's something to at least think about or test. Two-Tailed getting what I'm assuming to be Jolt is pretty cool, but Two-Tailed has struggled for relevance basically since its release. So we'll see if these changes help move it along at all, push the needle at all. If it does get a third rocket, that's going to be pretty interesting depending on total damage per rocket. Just keep in mind, it does not get Wolfpack from G-Horn. It's only for legendaries. Yeah, I think that's it for this post. Again, I don't think that linears are completely 100% dead. Their sustain is still incredible, and a 15% damage nerf will mean that things that were normally a 1-phase might go to a 2-phase, or a 2-phase encounter might be a little tougher to 2-phase. Maybe you need a 3rd phase. They're down, they're not out. Keep them around, and we're going to see what Lightfall holds for us. Otherwise, rockets, I would still invest in them. Bump in the night. Make sure you got one on you at the least. Go get that pattern. Bungie just made it so the weekly deep sights from vendors are now daily. You got nothing in your way now. Palmyra can do auto-loading and either Lasting Impression, Chill Clip, or Explosive Light. Blowout from Crucible can do Demo Explosive if you're lucky enough to get that. Break out those old hotheads if you got them. Has in Vengeance. Just be ready for a rocket meta. We don't know what's going to happen yet. Just be ready. Roar of the Bear from Iron Banner. If you're watching this when Iron Banner is still here, dump that one into the vault too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.